process as well. So I will share immediately after this. I will upload the recording minutes of it through my AI note taker, and then I'll happily share the video footage as well of the entire session as well at the end as well. So let me just share my screen quickly, and then we can get going. Okay, so we're going to share screen 2. There we go. Okay, so you should all see that screen now on your right-hand side, which is the big screen navigating the GLP-1 journey. Is that everybody got comms on that screen? Everybody's got it? Okay, great stuff. So and the chat box is open, so I've got access to the chat box while we're doing all this. So I can see the chat box in the background as well. And then as and when we're navigating the process, we can then just see where we are with that. So if you've got stuff to add, you want to chat, that's fine as well. If there's stuff that you want to just chip in with your mic on, that's also fine as well. As I said, it's not really my show per se. This is all of us as a team just progressing through how we're going to navigate what's going on here. So if we look at the process of GLP-1, so once again, if I'm so to speak, dumbing it down too much, because I'm trying to enter in from the perspective that most of us know really where we are, but also just want to make sure that from a process point of view that we all on the same page with that, we understand where we are with things from anatomy, physiology, biology point of view. So if when I start off and you all say, look, we know all that, Mikey, let's just move on, I'll move on as well, because I don't want to belabor the point and I don't want us to waste time around that. So if we look at where we are, okay, sorry, I just need to let Elaine back in. So if we look at where we are with GLP-1, just to understand what it is. So it's GLP-1 means glucagon-like peptide. Glucagon, and if I'm belaboring the point and you understand what I'm saying, tell me to move on. So I mean, glucagon, as we know, is a hormone produced by the pancreas, and it's helped to regulate blood sugar levels, integrates with the liver, and it has a number of other actions as well between fat and amino acid metabolism in the liver, and it can affect our appetite as well. So glucagon is released to help regulate blood sugar levels, as the same way that insulin is released to help to bring blood sugar levels down. So if we're on an understanding of that, then we're happy. And just to understand what a peptide is, if we're not sure, they're really short chain amino acids, whereas proteins are slightly longer chain amino acids. And effectively, they can also be synthesized in labs, but our body produces them as well. So, and peptides act as kind of like a communication process between the cells and helping to get the whole process going. So that's what GLP-1 is. It's a naturally produced, and it's important to understand, because we're going to come back to this later. And please, if anybody's got any questions, ask, interrupt, chip in. Please don't feel you all have to sit there in silence. I'm no expert on the matter. We're navigating this as a group. So further to that, then we'll then look at where and how this process happens. But just what I was saying is, it's a GLP-1 is produced within the body, and the medication that we're going to be looking at is also GLP-1, which then replaces our current GLP. And there's a bit of a conundrum around that, which we will reflect on later, which is quite common with a lot of medications that you take that your body naturally produces as well. So similar to creatine, if you're involved in sport, in that sports physiology perspective around creatine, etc., on everything that happens around that. So there's a lot of challenges around if we take a supplement that our body already produces, and there are a lot of science evidentiary matters around it, which we will come back to during the course of the conversation. So coming on to so what does GLP-1 do? So as I've already said, it enhances insulin secretion from the pancreas. So that helps to raise our blood sugar levels, whereas insulin will help to reduce our blood sugar levels. It's a fine balance. And maintaining that balance is part of our endocrine system, and which is also governed by our nervous system. So which most of us will have unpacked and uncovered in our learnings up to now. So what it does is it pretty much tells the brain, listen, buddy, your tummy's full, let's stop eating now, in a nutshell. But at the same time, it also slows down the rate which food leaves the stomach. So if we keep eating and we're taking GLP-1, we can already see there's maybe a slight physiological contradiction here. The body's going to think everything's cool, I can stop, but our body would then normally, through peristalsis, push that out of our bodies. But GLP-1 will slow down that rate that food moves from our stomach through our GI tract and out. And if you read anything about GLP-1, they say that one of the problems is that it can create and cause ileus. Ileus really means, it's a fancy medical term for really just blocking up your GIT tract. We're going to come back to that later. And by the way, this whole presentation, I'll share the whole presentation afterwards within the group and a lot of other side notes. And at the end of this, there's a whole list of website references, a host of them. And if anybody's battling to understand physiology, etc., we can always network back again or ping back in the group or even reach out to me privately, either or. Because I think it's important to understand this, because it has huge significance not only on diabetic patients or on overweight patients, but also on a host of other subset of patients who might have other chronics. So it's important that we pay attention, not necessarily now, but as we're progressing and moving on, we pay attention to the detail, because the devil is in the detail when it comes to GLP-1 and a lot of other drugs around us, and we're going to talk about them. And we're also going to talk around some of the myths and the misnomers but we'll get to that. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because I kind of get distracted and kind of get excited and passionate about stuff. So we really need to be very careful, which is why, even within reflecting back to a comment that Dawn and myself, this conversation we're having at the start of this, is there's a massive, I'll choose my words carefully here, there's a massive poor patient management and patient compliance and drug administration around GLP-1 in the way it should be used and the way that it is used. And there's a huge issue around why all this disconnect happens, which relates to a lot of other issues, which we'll niggle on some of those as we're going through. But it's important that we just understand that GLP-1 is naturally produced. Our body works around this, it pushes it out, and as a normal, healthy individual who doesn't have any comorbidities or any non-communicable diseases, in terms of which you will also fall into the comorbidity range, our body will find a right balance. And that's important that we keep that in mind moving forward. So we also need to understand that GLP-1 was and is and was only really meant to manage diabetic patients. As a sidebar around that, they found out that GLP-1 also helps with weight loss in the process. So just by a show of hands, and flick your mics on or post in the chat box or whatever, how many of you know people who are diabetics or are diabetic yourself? And please shout it out. You don't have to type, just say it out.
I know quite a few people with diabetes.
0 from my side.
Few from my side. One as young as like 10 years old.
Okay, so we'll know that a lot of people who are diabetics also take a drug called, in pre-diabetes and early onset diabetes, they'll take a drug called metformin.
Yes.
Okay, now metformin, we'll come to metformin later, but it's important to understand that there's a huge debate and discussion about which drug works, because we also need to understand GLP-1 is only meant as a diabetic medication drug. It's only meant in early onset pre-diabetes. It is not used as a chronic diabetic management drug. It's not approved for that anywhere globally. So we need to understand that's an important thing for us to be aware of. So metformin falls into a similar category around us. Our body also produces metformin, and metformin historically has been used since the 1600s. It's a plant-based substance, but it's important to understand that multiple studies have shown that in pre-diabetes, early onset diabetes, metformin has shown better results in the management of a diabetic patient than GLP-1. It's important to understand that GLP-1 has become like this bully in the playground purely because of this ancillary bonus of weight loss, which isn't necessarily a bonus. So you don't get something for free, particularly in medicine and particularly within the physiology of your body. Nothing is for free. So that's an important thing for us to understand of this whole process. And that's why even within the NHS, based on the conversations I had in the last 48 hours, which we will also reflect on towards the end of this, GLP-1 only works as part of a multi-group holistic approach. It doesn't work as a standalone. And that's the danger, which we will reflect on towards the end as well. That's the big danger about this. It is not meant to be a standalone end user product. It's not. It doesn't work that way. And that's why we're getting so much flack around it. So, yeah, and as I said, please feel free to interrupt any stage around what we're chatting about. So we're going to have a look at the side effects and everything as well. So does it reduce sugar craving? So the science says yes to an extent, because the science is not definitive. The science doesn't give us a definitive that it definitively reduces sugar craving. And there's a couple of science papers at the end of the presentation I'll share it, and you can go plow back through them. A lot of them are fairly intense, long science presentations. And just as an aside for the group, I think it's important at some stage or another, we have a workshop on how to read levels of evidence and how to read science papers and how to get an understanding of classes of evidence, because that's what makes science understandable, if you understand LOEs and class of evidence. Because then when you read a paper and they say things, you'll understand, okay, this is based on a solid class of evidence, or this is based on a fairly weak class of evidence. So, yeah, Sherry, I hear you about Ozempic, and sadly it is, but we particularly in South Africa, we need to take a very nuanced approach to how it is used. And we'll come back to a number of key publications put out by SAPRA about what is or isn't allowed and what is allowed on script or off script, or upfront or behind the back door, cash only. And there's a lot of conflicting stuff around it. But I think it's a good opportunity. It's a good leverage opportunity for us to maneuver into that space in a number of areas, and we'll get to that as we progress, because I think it opens doors. It opens constructive doors for discussion and dialogue, which is what we do. We discuss, we dialogue. We don't prescribe, and we don't enforce. So, which is why I'm saying that in the last bullet there on this little slide is that it's a combining medication which needs to be done through lifestyle changes. And you look at the way the policies around GLP-1 rollout are done within a national health environment program, and it is a short-term, short burst, early onset, get it in, get the guy to get focused on it, and then move into a lifestyle change, a behavioral support change. And all the science papers say exactly the same thing. Okay, so because the medication doesn't address the emotional patterns that might be causing the person to be overweight. It doesn't address the stress-related eating habits. It doesn't address the sugar spikes based on poor lifestyle management. It doesn't address the lack of exercise. There's so many things it doesn't address. And if anybody has paid some vague attention to things that I say sometimes, particularly in the last CSS presentation I did, is that there's no quick fixes. It's a lifestyle we're going to look at. It's not a tablet. It's not a diet. Tablets and diets don't work because it's short change. You know, get a quick fix now, fit into the dress of the suit. Sorry, Dawn, my apologies. You're going to say something.
No problem. So if we're looking at it, obviously the negatives are huge as we keep going through it, unless whoever is taking it is getting support throughout the process. So in what case, at what percentage would your body weight need to be so out for this to be an acceptable approach to work with?
Well, that's an interesting question because there is no statistical hinge factor or trigger factor or fulcrum factor where it becomes a necessity. So, and sadly, we have pop culture medicine to blame for this, where really what the patients, if you look at where it's used in the right framework, and even in this presentation I sat in on yesterday, they even said that they are not able to use GLP-1 correctly, even in a NHS framework, for a host of reasons, which we will reflect on also what's happening in South Africa in terms of black market, backdoor medicine, poorly prescribed medicine, where people are doing it for profit and not for actual patient long-term benefit. But ideally, you'd be looking at somebody who'd be morbidly obese, BMI in excess of 30 to 35, body fat percentage, and BMI is also kind of flawed. So you kind of look at body fat percentage. You have body fat percentage of 25 to 30% up. So that's where you'd be looking at using where GLP-1 would be used, but only then also within the chronic space. The problem is, because it's such an attractive short-term drug, people are using it as a long-term drug only for weight loss, even when they're not diabetic. And there are challenges around that, which we'll come to later on in terms of the science of what our body is now doing when it doesn't feel the need to make GLP-1 anymore. And also metformin is also turned into this pop culture drug as well, just by the way, which is why metformin is also now used as a longevity drug, but it's been flawed, and I reflect on it towards the end of this presentation because it forms part of this whole process where we are using pharmacology incorrectly. And it's been used incorrectly by the dispenser for profit and not for actual physiological benefit. We have a lot to answer for. So we're looking at the GLP medications. They can reduce the desire for sweets. I think I just shared it, or have I gone back to it? Okay, I've done that already, so my apologies, losing track here. So within South Africa, it's important. We're practicing medicine in South Africa, we're practicing healthcare in South Africa, and effectively only Ozempic and Mounjaro by Novo and Eli Lilly are only registered for the management of diabetes. There are doctors who are prescribing them, and there are weight loss clinics, and I can list the names of all of them if anybody wants them, who are prescribing them for weight loss very attractively at 3,000 to 5,000 Rand a month. But they're not legally licensed to be used for weight loss. They are only registered for management of diabetes. And it's important we understand that, and also as a result of this, there's a significant black market trade that has now arisen through this process. Because of poor supply, there's a lot of black market drugs that have hit the market, which are not made by Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk, but they've got their branding on it, but they are not their drugs. And these are black market drugs hitting the market, sourced through backdoor channels, coming in from poor pharmaceutical manufacturers, and we hitting a lot of the medical professions, hitting a lot of challenges around these drugs, which are coming outside of the normal of the two only pharmaceutical houses in South Africa that are approved to sell them. And I can send you photos of packaging where they've tried to mimic the Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk imagery on their boxes, and it's shocking. So any product that doesn't have that branding on, you shouldn't be using it. Any product that has that branding on, you should be very skeptical as well, and make sure that it is a legit one as well. Because they only are released in South Africa in pretty much like an EpiPen or a insulin pen. That's how they're released. They are not released as a tablet form or a liquid form or powder form. They're only released by Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk in an injectable pen form. So any other drug that's coming any other way, even in an ampule, is illegal and not licensed by SAPRA or Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk. So we need to be careful if we are working in this fringe market and we've got clients who are saying that they are. We need to get a definitive analysis of what they are using in a very polite, cordial way without wanting to be insulting to them. And maybe even suggest to them that if your GP is prescribing it, let's sit down and look at a holistic plan for you, because your GP only is giving you 15 or 30 minutes in your consult, but we can sit down for an hour at a time and have a more in-depth, detailed consult and look at from a lifestyle change, etc., and hit them with a soft touch, softly catch your monkey. Do it slow, do it gentle. But it's very important to understand that where and how people are using it. There's even personal trainers. There's even gyms that are offering this in South Africa at the moment. And I've got the official SAPRA legislative guidelines, and I'll share that all those PDF links are in the back at the end of this presentation anyway. If anybody wants the hard copies, I'll PDF them off to you as well. So, but it's important to understand that because GLP-1 has become so popular, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk have got stock shortages, so the black market trade is pushing in. One needs to be very careful. One doesn't know what it's been mixed with, what it's been cut with, what else is in it. But once again, from a client personal relationship point of view, we got to be very, very slowly gentle with our clients, and not go hardcore on them and grab them and pull it by the ear and slap them on the head as being silly and stupid. which is probably what they deserve, but yeah. So it's very important, and Cara, no sweat. If you just drop your email address, not in the chat box, but drop your email address in the WhatsApp group. I'll send everything through, as well as a hard copy on email if anybody wants it as well. So we're saying, so even if you're using the official stuff, you're using Ozempic, pushed out by Eli Lilly, the weekly dosing, the maintenance dose is about 3,000 Rand per month. Medical aids don't cover all of it. And those who do, it comes out of your MSA. You can't even claim it from chronic benefits. So it's going to chew up your MSA if you're using a medical aid. And medical aids are at this stage not on a carte blanche covering the GLP-1, purely because it's such a quagmire. Diabetics, if it is prescribed by the doctor for diabetes only, yes. But if it's prescribed for non-diabetic purposes, the chances of you getting approval are highly unlikely, unless you pull it, you claw it back from your MSA. But it's important for us to understand and reflect back in that GLP-1 is a quick short-term fix, which it gives you a quick short-term gain, but it doesn't guarantee that. It's like a diet. You go on a diet and you lapse off the diet, you're going to put the weight back. And you look at statistically, when GLP-1 is used only as a standalone device for weight loss only, it has poor long-term outcomes. Weight loss is regained, and the studies point that out. So it has to be used within the entire process. So if we look at the side effects, and the side effects are quite huge. So they're both short-term and long-term side effects. So short-term side effects are not that significant, but the long-term side effects are deadly. So nausea, diarrhea, constipation, and that's really because the body is clogging up and not pushing stuff through. But those can lead to dehydration, surprisingly, low blood sugar, because one would then want, if you're constipated, naturally you'll take a laxative. Well, then you're going to dehydrate, you're going to lose, you're going to crash your blood sugar, you're going to get blood sugar drops. You're not going to be managing a good blood sugar balance. And there are also, within young people, there are no long-term studies or even short-term studies for the effect of GLP-1 on adolescents and people in the early 20s. There's no long-term studies. We have no idea what is happening. And there's a lot of research that points that it's a black hole. So, and then there are hosts of other long-term complications which you can get from that. So, if we look at the long-term complications, those people who might recognize the lady in the bottom picture, that's what's her name? Osborne. What's the Ozzy Osbourne's wife's name? Wife's name, I can't remember her name now. But anyway, and that is massive volume loss, massive dehydration. So,
her name's Sharon.
Thank you. Thanks, Elaine. Somebody follows pop culture. So, and you're getting massive volume loss, fat loss. So there's a lot of physiological changes that happen when you approaching it from this. So, and it's not healthy in the medium term, and in the long term, it's not healthy. So in the same way, some people can get facial changes from bariatric surgery or massive crash diets. So I read somewhere as well that this is now called like the Hollywood face, because almost every second Hollywood celebrity looks like this. So people are just taking it because they're losing body fat, and it really increases aging, and it dehydrates the skin at a cellular level, and it causes a lot of other challenges and issues.
Mike,
Yes.
can I just say something?
Of
I've
course,
read
please.
in a book of Dr. Peter Diamandis about longevity. So he's talking also about the GLP-1s, and he says that it's not actually fat loss as such, but you lose quite a lot of muscle mass.
Yeah, it's
And
volume
when
loss
you
as well.
yes, when you stop using it, you pick up fat again.
Yes,
Fat
without
cells.
picking,
So,
without picking up the muscle. Yeah.
Yes, without the muscle.
Yep.
And that
Yeah.
means actually that your body fat percentage goes up.
Yes. Yeah, it does.
And that is part of the Ozempic phase.
And also
the loss of muscle mass.
And the scary thing is here is that a lot of people are using it are, I'll use a polite word. I was going to say elderly, but that I'm throwing myself into the elderly bucket as well. Are people over the age of 50, and most of us over the age of 50 in fact, anybody over the age of 40 is starting to lose muscle mass unless you're working specifically to maintain muscle mass. So the challenge here is we're getting people who are losing muscle mass and are not doing any exercises to rebuild muscle mass, and are then not putting on fat. So their whole body fat percentage, their BMI, is totally out of kilter, and their whole physiology is out of kilter because a lot of the fat they're picking up is visceral fat as well.
And by not eating properly,
yes,
you're losing a lot of bone mass.
Yes.
Because and that is critical in the more aged people, because there's no chance of building.
Male and female, both of us. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the bone density is the most frightening, I would think. But I suppose the muscle mass is a nightmare to try and rebuild, because once you do regain, you're gaining all the fat, or you'll gain the fat quicker than you'll be able to develop your muscle. So the weight's totally all out of sync again anyway.
And also, we need to also remember, the moment we start storing fat, we affect our cortisol levels. The moment we affect our cortisol levels, we affect our insulin levels. The moment we affect our insulin levels, we affect our GLP-1 levels. It becomes a vicious cycle.
So by taking this GLP-1, I know you said you were going to get to it. Is it's overriding the one that we're creating ourselves?
The interesting dynamic is the science is, the jury's out, but the jury is leaning strongly towards that it's definitely going to screw up our GLP production.
So when we stop, our GLP-1 is probably likely to reduce as well?
Depends for how long we're on.
This is hopeless.
Depends for how long we're on, and that's the window we don't know.
Sure.
Because there's no science being done on it. In the same way that people who take creatine monohydrase, or creatine HCl, who want to, most people who take creatine take it for the wrong reasons, because they don't understand why you need to take creatine. But our body naturally produces creatine between I think it's between 0.5 to 1.25 milligrams of creatine. It's produced within the spinal cord. And if people are taking too much on a regular loading dose and not phasing in and phasing out, or taking it for the wrong reasons, then our own creatine supply is suppressed, and we then end up with creatine shortfalls. And the science is leaning towards that long-term usage of GLP-1. Now, don't ask me to define long-term usage, because the science hasn't been able to yet. Yeah. But idealistically, creatine is GLP-1 is meant to be used in the short-term pre-diabetes, early onset diabetes phase for overweight people only, as part of a holistic management plan. That's the caveat, holistic management plan. But none of it is happening under that. So we are creating a dynamic where we don't know what the science outcome is going to be because no research is being done on it. It's a rabbit hole. You just keep going down. There's like so many.
So it's hit the market before people can actually see the true damage it's going to create.
Yeah, everybody's trying to make a quick buck now. And that's exactly what happened in the bodybuilding creatine environment until people saw the light. And everybody was using creatine for the wrong reasons and had no understanding what creatine actually does and why you would need to want to use creatine. Which is a whole totally different ballgame. If you're working in that sort of field, we can have a sidebar chat about that because I've worked with that field for the last 20 years. So you can see I don't take creatine because I'm not bulky. So
the thing is, Mike,
yes, go on.
What is scary for me is the fact that we've got a code of conduct and a scope of practice.
Correct.
Where we cannot really, we are not really allowed to give all this information to people.
Let's just take it back a step and say we can give people information for them to make an informed decision. We can give them the science, but we are not there to give them a definitive do this or do that. But I think it's important that if we build up a good relationship with the client, that we are open with them in terms of that we want them to understand without wanting to be prescriptive of the inherent dangers which might be sitting ahead for them. And that would be that would form part of any health coaching analysis that you'd want to be raise a level of awareness, raise a level of insight, and showing that you're building a relationship and a trust, as opposed to saying, yeah, just do that, it's going to help you, which is what the doc will be doing because he's making $3,000 a month.
Mm.
Illegally in South Africa because it's not prescribed for that.
Yeah, but with the mentality of the person that's taking this, they're after the quick fix, right? So they're not going to be coming to you as a coach to help them lose weight to start with. So that's your battle number one. So you're actually only getting them, hopefully, at the point where they're coming off, where you try and re-establish them as a human, or alternatively when they are off it, and then you've got a massive job to get them right. That's the challenge we're facing.
Agreed. We're picking up the pieces.
Yeah.
My concern also is with young people, especially women. And I've seen it here in Paul with the young mums. Everybody wants to be as slim as possible, and they have somehow access to Ozempic because it starts to becoming a big thing around the sporting fields. Who's on Ozempic and who not. And they are actually compromising their health in the long term, but they don't care about it for long term. They only look at the now.
Well, I mean, if they are young and still of childbearing age, I'll send you some information. There's some interesting studies on how this affects the ability for the negative effects of childbearing and the negative effects of that.
I would appreciate that.
Is there a study that's done on like phases? People go through phases. Everybody sort of went through their phase of being on their antidepressants. Now
Yeah.
we've moved on to this. Is there a phase that this has hit the market before it hits reality of people realizing how damaging it is, or until the next thing comes through? Is there some sort of research that gives us one sort of timeline on this? Because people aren't going to be crazy for this for the next 8 years. Because they're going to then see in 2 or 3 years' time what these people end up looking like, or having to endure.
Hopefully not. But I mean, just in terms of what we're discussing, look at the dangers of this on a perimenopausal woman who's going through changes, who already will have calcium deficiencies and all sorts of other deficiencies. Or look at this in somebody who might have underlying issues like rheumatoid arthritis, or low calcium levels. Look at it, and I think, look, we're not going to be able to change people's minds, everybody's mindset. But if we can change one, then it's a win.
Sure.
For that one starfish, it makes a difference. I'm getting all philosophical now. But yes, I mean, this is a huge concern. It's a massive can of worms, and the more we dive into it, the more we're not sure where we are. So this comes to what we were just chatting about now, concerns of where we're going to be regarding GLP-1 production. So the science says that there's a potential risk related to the body's own GLP production. So, and the science in the studies, they use this as part of their conclusion findings, that we're not sure of the clinical significance, but we know it's a risk factor. So if we are going to just take the tablet long term, okay, so, and we're not sure yet what long term or short term is, but based on the studies I've read, short term is really literally for the first month or two, just to stabilize while the patient is onboarding with other holistic team-based variances. So, and we know, I mean, the science has shown convincingly that in other areas where we are onboarding meds that our body already produces, it does affect, particularly within the endocrinal hormonal space, which is where we're operating here, within the GLP-1, metformin, glucose, insulin space. That's part of our endocrinal hormonal space. That there are challenges which create significant roadblocks down in the future. As I find more science, I'll definitely share it. So, and as I said, the metformin longevity debate, because there are people now who are just taking metformin who are not even diabetic, because the anecdotal science shows that metformin helps in some areas of longevity. But it's not conclusive. So we might even be finding it. I was chatting to a guy in the US the day before yesterday, who works in this sort of health space. And he was saying that this is a challenge they're having as well there, where people are now starting to take metformin as a means to help them to deal with their stress management, and also as a means of longevity. He works in a very male-dominated corporate executive, high-power environment. And it was an interesting discussion that I had with him about this.
Mike?
Yes.
Can we just quickly go back to what you said, using it in a short term?
Yeah.
So, for instance, a person wants to lose weight, but there is an holistic approach.
Yes.
So there are people around him that helps him with his weight management, with his diet, with his exercise program, with everything combining, but just to get him to lose the first month or two
The studies
bulk
have
of
shown,
weight.
the studies have shown that it works well in that space, and that's the space it's meant to work in.
Okay, so and then you can go off it and
Yes.
just go on with your program, with your holistic program.
Yes, although the science also says, sorry, my cat just weed underneath my chair. Sorry, so that's why I was like looking down.
I was wondering
and
what
you're
was
dripping
happening
and tearing
there.
and so on. I wasn't tearing up documents. I was like trying to mop up before I put my feet in it. My little kitten. So life goes on even though everything happens around us. So but it's important to, if you the way the context that you're phrasing it is the perfect correct context around how it should be used here. But once again, the comparative studies have shown, and I'll actually forward you a synopsis of the one study, where it shows that whether you're using GLP-1 or you're using just a good diet program, the chances are you're going to end up in about the same space, but more than likely take maybe a couple of weeks longer going the traditional route without the GLP route.
Mike, could I ask a question?
I saw what you've just written there now. Is that what you want to ask?
Yeah, well, it's on my mind as it comes up. As health coaches, I'm referring to what Tia said. Is there a risk that some of our clients could actually become psychologically dependent? Even though you say it's short term, they could become psychologically dependent. And it could produce like a euphoria that any addictive substance would. And then we could be potentially be in a situation whereby we have to refer them anyway. What do you think the likelihood of it would be?
It's unlikely that we're going to move into the euphoria state because it doesn't hit those endorphins and it doesn't flag those endorphins. Okay. So it's highly unlikely you're going to get into that addictive state. But we do need to acknowledge that the ability to find a tablet that's going to help you to lose weight can become psychologically addictive.
Yeah.
In the sense of that you will fixate on this to help you to lose weight without looking at the holistic approach that Thea was postulating. So and that's where we need to be very discerning of how we deal with the client around that basis, which is why a team-based approach, a tag teaming the patient will be better than you trying to work them on your own.
Yeah.
Have a couple of people coming in from different angles, different nuances, different perspectives to help you. And even within our space as we are here, there's no reason why, if any one of us has a client, we can't reach out to somebody else within the group who has a nuance that could help, that we can leverage off. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we've set up this HCA Western Cape group. One of the many reasons, besides the interactiveness, is the ability for us to work collaboratively and support each other, even in the back channels with clients and coaches and patients, or whatever we choose to call them.
I think one is going to have one hell of a problem with clients psychologically, because if I'm taking a tablet or having an injection that I'm seeing results on, and I've been battling, because let's be honest, if I'm 100 kilos overweight, I've been battling this for a long time, and I've really been struggling mentally with it. Now I've got this reward happening. It's dropping off me, and on the other side of it, I'm having to do bugger all. I probably can't be doing anything because I feel so finished, but it's all happening. To then sort of come to you and go, right, now we're going to gym. I think the mentality of that client is going to be a very small percentage.
We don't have to necessarily gym to lose weight.
No. I'm saying the overall thing, because we're needing to keep the muscle going while they're on this anyway, would be my factor to keep that going for them. The other thing is when they are eating their nominal amount of food that they are able to cope with, what is one feeding them? Because what they are able to take in is so limited. So are we now on a high protein diet?
The problem is that they don't have an appetite at all.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, one of our friends, he's on Ozempic, but he's diabetic. And he's a huge, big man, almost 2 meters long, weighing, I think, 140 kgs. But he lost quite a lot of weight on Ozempic. But he can't eat a second slice of pizza.
That's the thing. So what are you feeding them to get that balance in and give them all those nutrients back?
Because they are totally nutrient deficient. They can't get food in their bodies.
No.
And they
The
also
other thing is
that's why Ozempic is not long term.
No, it's not.
And the glucose goddess says, eat your vegetables first. But when you're on Mounjaro and the Ozempic, they say, eat your protein first. I'm just relating to what you said, Dawn. They've got to get that protein in, and they say, eat that first above all. So then that's going to make...
Elaine, don't get me started on the glucose goddess, because her approach is flawed and not science-based, and I don't even want to go there. I refused on principle to watch the YouTube video because it's not science-based. And
I call it the green goddess
has been debunked completely within the science network. And I was very upset that HCA put that in, and I took it up with them, as I have a number of other things, because I can be quite bombastic and arrogant.
We like that. If it's going to help us, we like that.
But coming back to your your patient. So let's say that's a patient here that you got who's a diabetic, and he needs to be treated holistically in terms of from a diet perspective and a nutritional intake perspective. And for me, who looks at this from a science point of view, so I would look at it from a science point of view and do a science calculation on his BMR, his basal metabolic rate. And he doesn't have lean body mass, so there's formulas for lean body mass for fit people and for obese people to do a BMR calculation in terms of what his calorie intake should be per day based on that. And he would need to eat that regardless.
Sure.
Wow.
And you've
There's
got
another challenge.
That's a challenge, yes.
No, but you can find ways around that. I mean, I can do a thumb suck calculation later. You see, like 2 meters, it's like 2 meters high and about 140 kilograms. Male patient. What's his age? How old is he? Because that's part of BMR as well.
68 years.
68.
No, I'm lying. 65. Sorry.
65. So I don't know the calculation out of my head, sadly, because it's like in percentages and percentiles and so on. But I'll do that and have a look at that and see, because he needs to then have a calorie input calculator of how much he's got to put in his body each day, which will help him, and then find the best calories to get that in, which are they're going to be complex carbohydrates, etc., etc.
because then it's not so much about the calories, but it's the vitamins and minerals that we're needing to replace.
But if you're going on a greens diet, and he more than likely would have to be on a fairly high, I'm not a fan of I shouldn't get on a soapbox, but I'm not a fan of prescriptive diets, high protein, low protein, or fasting or autophaging. I'm a fan of what works at that point in time for that patient, and then maybe transition them off. So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't believe in long-term prescriptive doses, because no medical regime is long-term prescriptive. Medicine's meant to be to help guide you back to health. So just some interesting information. So if we look at where do we go the way forward? So early onset diabetes. And, we look at some of these stats and the physiology around it. And I mean, early onset diabetes is being diagnosed in the UK and the US in people as young as 10, 12 years old already, because of their diet. And that's been prevalent for about the last 10, 15 years. But also a very interesting note there is that in the Asian population, even those who are of normal weight, they have significant ectopic fat, visceral fat, which causes a weaker beta cell function, and then they are already pre-diabetic, even if they are skinny. And most importantly, lifestyle programs help, but we need to look at long-term support, which is where we come in, long-term support. And all the discussions I've had with the NHS, with PCI, has been the reason why chronics is failing horribly in the UK. Up to 83% of the population is sitting in the 55-year plus is sitting with chronics which they cannot manage. 83%. It's a ticking time bomb.
Frightening.
So lifestyle programs with support has shown again and again a holistic healthcare, which is what we're all about that. Holistic healthcare. And even us here as a team of 10 holistically work together, troubleshoot, discuss, talk.
We can actually group this together with all chronic conditions, because people are taking medication for chronic diseases, which their quality of life can actually be much better if they look at a more holistic lifestyle.
Yeah, agree totally, 100%. I've been a fan of Dr. Dean Ornish, and he was mentioned only in passing in Pillar 2, which I was quite sad about. Was it Pillar 3? Pillar 2. I've been following him since the 1990s. I mean, his lifestyle change, he's a cardiologist, and he put together a lifestyle change program, which was the only lifestyle change program which is approved within a medical insurance as opposed to surgery, and is paid for by medical insurance, and has shown a 60 to 80% reduction in corrective elective cardiac surgery on patients who are booked for surgery over as short a crash time as 8 weeks. He was able to get them off the surgical list. And it was all about teamwork, holistic lifestyle changes.
It's quite a dilemma because, if you Don, you said, okay, what if that person comes off the GLP-1s, whatever one it is, and they start picking up all that weight, and then they're going to get psychologically disturbed then that will make our job harder. Then they might go try and get it on the black market. And that would be terrible for them. And I know when it's prescribed by professionals, they start off probably on, you'll know better, Mike, but I think like 2.5, and then they go on to the second month if all their body measurements are okay, the muscle mass, etc., water balance, and then they'll go on to 5, they'll up it, and so forth, and it can go up to 15, hey? So how do we control that? And you know, if our clients have been honest as well about it? So I'll put that out there.
But do you think our clients are going to come to us telling us that they are on this, which they shouldn't, that they have got illegally? Are we going to get that?
I don't know. People are human, and if they need that to keep their 50 kilograms off, it's a possibility.
I think once they're on it, unless it's going wrong, I don't think they're going to be seeking our help, because it's getting resolved for me because I'm on the meds. So why am I looking for a holistic situation when I could have done that before I hit the meds?
Perhaps
I think Dawn, we need to ask the critical questions that, yes, that you might be on the meds now, but
when they come off it,
what's your quality of life now? So if we let's say we look at a male patient, 50 plus, who's overweight, who's on the meds. What's your quality of life now? What's your libido like? What's your energy levels like? What's your ability to for want of a better expression, to perform as a man like? Have you had your testosterone levels checked? Have you looked at ways to manage that? Because if he's losing so much weight and putting on fat, and he's not dealing with all the other issues, he's going to be hitting all the midlife low testosterone issues that a male is going to hit regardless. Which then comes with decreased calcium levels, and if he's wanting to exercise, it increases the risk of stress fractures. And one could have the same discussion with a woman who's perimenopausal, premenopausal, even menopausal or postmenopausal. In terms of all of this is going to affect her integrity. It's going to affect holistically her as what defines her as an individual at that point in time. I mean, it's going to affect her calcium levels, increase the risk of osteoporosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and all those issues. So it's not. I think we need to look at this as the big picture, and not just look at it as, you know, as the individual coming to us. We need to explore all the avenues with that. And the only way we're going to do that is if we work within a larger team approach. So if you've got access to sports physio, if you've got access to biokineticist, if you've got access to somebody who can take you through the regime of checking out his or her BMR, checking out there's technology available that you can do it yourself. I have a electronic scale at home, which gives you my BMR, tells you my bone density, tells you my visceral fat levels, my connective tissue, my connective muscle, ligamental strength, gives me everything through electrical impedance. There's a margin of error, but it's pretty close to being okay on the edge of science.
Can we purchase those, Mike?
I beg your pardon?
For home use, can we purchase those?
You can,
home
yeah.
use?
You can, yeah. They range anywhere from 1,500 to 3,000 rand, depending what brand name you want.
Okay.
You know, and it runs on an app on your phone, and you can load your patients onto it if you have patients. You just load them as another person to get on the scale and weigh. But I mean, we're kind of skirting the edge of our scope of practice. But at the end of the day, we're not using that as a definitive tool, but we're using that as a means to show the client, the patient, the coachee, listen, there's some margins of improvement here. Let's see how we can do that and explain the risks of why we might want them to improve it. I'm a huge fan of using science to help, because science actually works if we actually want to do it.
So basically, we're going to end up with a client then who's possibly at the stage that they have lost the weight or in the process of losing weight and now have lost their zest for their normal life. And now we're rebuilding that person. We're in a worse situation we were before, Mike. They could have just lost weight.
Yeah, we've got
they've chosen to put themselves in that situation. We're just going to get them out of the hole.
Yeah,
I think that, yes, we will get those people as well. But my take on it is that we need to get to the GPs or the people that are prescribing this medication to the people and tell them, listen, okay, now you've prescribed it to this person. It needs to go with a holistic approach as well. They cannot only use that. So somehow we need to get that information, the support, the team-based approach to the GPs. And that is something that I see a very difficult path, because they just want to prescribe and don't want anything more to do with this patient.
There are some GPs who are open to this, and I know of a couple of GP practices and GP network groups that are open to using health coaches. So, we need to leverage off that, and we need to share information within the group in terms of where we can refer them to patients, to GPs who would be willing to work with us. And there are GP network groups. I know the Intercare group is open to working with health coaches, and Discovery obviously is as well. I've reached out to them to see what their network is, because they do have health coaches based out of Johannesburg. And within on the website, they speak about using holistic, and they speak about health coaches. So there's many avenues, and I'm sure most of us would be able to network with a GP who would be amenable to sit and have a chat.
But I don't think that's going to be the majority of your market. I don't think the majority of your market's going to be fed by your GP. I think it's all of those people who have done this behind the scenes, who've tried to fix themselves and their own weight loss, and now have ended up in trouble. And now they don't, and they need help.
And they're outdoors. Yeah. And then we can create a holistic hub for them to work with.
Yeah.
But somehow we need to be able to market ourselves in that space, so that people know there is help out there, because they don't know that.
Which brings me to another interesting point, and I know it might, I don't know if it will or won't be, or how extensively it will be covered within HCA in our latter modules. But we already need to be now creating a space where people are thinking about where we, meaning you, are going as a profession. So you need to be already creating your own health coach space now. I really have created a number of business frameworks online, and have actively began to promote and market the potential of a health and wellness center and networking, and I'm beginning to promote now already. So we need to be aggressive about how we go about this. People are not just going to come knocking on your door because you're qualified. It's not going to happen. Never happens. Trust me. I've been self-employed for 25, 30 years.
But how do you tap into that market that hasn't found the medical route? How do you get to that person?
The million-dollar question, Dawn. I still don't have a definitive answer because I've been doing that for the last 30 years in multiple businesses, and I've still been able to stay alive and work.
Haven't we all?
Yeah. So,
just head above water.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been self-employed since 1998 and running my own consulting firms. So, but I've already created a LinkedIn page. I've already have an Instagram page. I've already got a Facebook page. Our company website is already set up with a link to a health and wellness space and center we are creating. So I'm raising awareness, and I'm busy. I'm writing articles. I'm posting them. I'm blogging about the health and wellness space, and I'm working within the areas where I work, and I'm driving my clients. I work in the L&D space, leadership and development, and curriculum development space, and I'm driving my clients who I consult to and I write programs for to move into a health and wellness space, a PTSD space, a burnout space, and I've got sponsorship to write a 4-part international leadership program on that, which will all add value to where I'm going to be dragging my whole concept. So I think those are also discussions as a team we need to have to help each other and guide each other. All of us have different skill sets, all have different strengths, and all have different mindsets and ideologies. So, but I think that's what this is about. We need to view this HCA WC group as like our launch pad to work together and support each other. How can we help each other? How can we network? How can we penetrate markets together?
I think that's very much one of the things that, I was trying to discuss with Lynn. And in fact, I'm going to speak to you afterwards, Mike. I'll forward it to you. I've got a medical company, also Joburg, that has coaches. I don't know if Lynn sent that information to you too. But the thing for me is that, Sports Science here in Cape Town has a nutritional network group of people that you can connect to. We all need to be on that same page out there, whether we have different avenues we're in or not, but we all fall under HCA Western Cape as coaches. That if somebody wanted a coach that was certified through HCA, we're all on there. We start that group. We don't have the UK base. We have to create our own one, whether it's Western Cape or South Africa. It's irrelevant. I mean, ideally, I'd prefer it South Africa. And then we can all connect because it doesn't exist at the moment. And why should we not belong to a system where we can all help each other?
Agree totally.
More awareness.
I mean, I'm all about creating a business and creating a whole vibe and creating a dynamic, because that's how we work together. I mean, my business has survived because I coalesce and feed off and network and partner with other people in synergies in Africa on projects I've been running for the last 30 years. And I'm still running projects based on collective, collaborative work. You can't work alone. No man is an island.
You can't work alone. You can, but it's so much harder when we can all work together and feed and help each other and bounce ideas off each other. I mean, obviously 6, 8, 10 people is going to be better than if you're out there on your own.
Definitely.
So somehow we've got to find some structure to put that together. Space is
important for us to dialogue, to share, to see what we're doing and see how we can work constructively, positively together, that we don't feel alone. Because I'm sure, I mean, I can't speak for anybody else in the group, but I mean, I think for me, I'm doing this qualification for a specific reason and a specific end game, and I've really mapped out my end game and mapped out where I'm going, and I've got a whole business model worked around that and a whole strategy around that. And I'd like to think that all of you are thinking the same way, that you've got to be planning now for next year. If you plan for next year, when you hit next year, you're going to be a year behind schedule.
Yes.
And you can relate to that, Dawn, because you like working in a self-employed consulting environment as well.
It doesn't come to you. You've
No.
got to work towards it all the time.
You've got to break down
and
you've got to bash heads, you've got to bully people.
And the other thing is, I don't know how any of you feel, but I mean, I'm connected to the UK lot when I'm in class. But the minute I'm not in class, I feel like I'm out here in Cape Town on our own. You know, that's why we need to pull this group together, because they've got each other. You know, they can all rely on heading back to HCA. They're all there. They're in person. We already quite dispersed anyway. So to have this team close knit is really important, I feel. But on that note, we are now 7:20. We're going on to our next one in 10 minutes.
I have my closing slide. I've got to have my philosophical closing thoughts. Mike's being philosophical.
Go for it.
And then everybody can disappear. And I'll share the presentation and all the adjuncts and documents and links and everything as well. So, yeah. And
Thank you so much for all your input.
I've got lots of other information and studies, but I didn't want to put them all in the references in the article list because there's like so many I've been plowing through. And Thea, I've got some interesting comments about some of the stuff from yours. I'll reflect back to you privately about that. So, I mean, effectively, you know, there's so much about longevity, better health and better life is very seductive. But at the end of the day, what do we do with it? How do we use that information? How do we use that data? And that's where we are. How do we use the data that's around us? How do we use the data to help us? And we must not let the data rule us. We must not let the data become a commandment for us, because then we're losing sight of where we are. Because there's a huge paradox in terms of what we do. The desire to live longer, to live healthy, because this whole debate about longevity with quality of life and length of life. And we are in the quality of life market, not the length of life market. Mm. Our niche is the quality of life. So even if people live short lives, it must be good quality. Mm. And that's both the conundrum and the paradox, because some people do die young. I had a chat with a good mate of mine. We've been friends for 20 years. We've been consulting in Africa for the last 20 years. He's 10 years younger than me, and he's been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he's in his early 50s, and was huge. I mean, I've had a couple of my mates die from cancer and other things in the last couple of years, but it's a huge eye-opener for all of us. You know, nothing's guaranteed. There's no guarantee, you know, and we desire so much to live longer. That's our human desire, to stay for as long as we can. But we want to stay capable, lucid, and independent. So, and my closing thought is, are we trying to live longer, or we're just trying not to be afraid? And maybe that's a discussion we should have with our clients. Sorry, I get very intensely philosophical.
No, it's a very thought-provoking. I've always been on the not necessarily longer, but good whilst we're here, right?
Correct.
Quality life.
I turned 63 last week, and I still want to.
You did what?
I turned 63 last week. Yeah.
Well done, you. You look amazing.
So, and I still want to live longer, but I want to have good quality of life. That's, for me, is the key. Sure. Quality of life. I don't mind if I live to 100, as long as when I'm 100, I can still go for a run when I'm happy.
Yeah, definitely. And well, thank you very much, Mike, from all of us.
And I can still fit into my I can still fit into my work clothes from the 1990s, and I don't take GLP-1.
Yeah, we'll all work to keep you off those.
So, but yeah. Thank you for indulging me again, and thank you for allowing me the indulgence.
It's brilliant. We really so much.
Really appreciate.
And I think there's a whole lot of things we can pick out of here and have another whole discussion on again.
There are
which
so many.
yeah, I think we must discuss behind the scenes on WhatsApp or whatever and see what we can tackle next time if anybody's got anything
Okay.
specific.
So there's all links, all the links to all the references and articles are at the end of the presentation. I'll share the presentation with everybody.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
anybody is welcome to reach out to me on WhatsApp. My number's in the WhatsApp group. You're welcome to ping me privately if anybody wants to get other information or whatever. I don't believe in hogging IP. There is no IP. It's like shared collectives.
Wonderful.
Thanks
so much.
If you're a Trekkie, remember the Borg. We are one.
Yeah. For one and one for all.
That's Robin Hood, but yeah, but we're getting there. Yeah.
Right, everybody.
Good.
I'm going to
Thank you.
sign you all off.
Bye-bye, everyone.
In a month's time.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Thank you again, Mike. Cheers.